Welcome to 4th and 1, ladies and gentlemen. The pieces are coming together for the Chiefs' 2019 season. We've had a few hires, but the big news a few signings. But the big news I thought last week was the addition of, or the finalization of the Chiefs' coaching staff, the defensive coaching staff under new defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. There were some names we already knew about. But Nick, was it good to finally see everything officially come together? Whether it was David Merritt as defensive backs coach, Matt House as linebackers coach, or any of the other announcements that were made.
It's just good that it's finally official. I know a lot of people were questioning, was this guy going to remain on the coaching staff? Was that guy going to remain on the coaching staff? A lot of people kept asking about Al Harris, and as we saw, he did not make the cut on the final coaching staff because it seems that Sam Madison and Dave Merritt are going to be replacing him. So, I mean, in terms of it was interesting that Britt Reed got moved to linebackers and outside linebackers coach.
When they're moving to a 4-3.
I mean, they can call whatever, they can call him the king of Rancho Grande for all I care. I don't care. It's just a title. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. So, but what you're trying to do, and what Andy's trying to do, in my opinion, is he's trying to help Britt build a resume that shows that he's diverse, that he's coached D-line, he can coach linebackers, and maybe he coaches secondary or something else in the future, so that long term, whenever Andy has potentially retired from the league, Britt has enough on his resume and has learned enough from a defensive coaching staff, which he will this upcoming year. I don't think he did as much as past handful of years, but that that he will learn from some very bright minds on the staff that can help him maybe become his own defensive coordinator, whether that's in college, NFL, or whatever it may be. So that's why I think he got the title that he did. And again, I know people are hung up on it being outside. It says linebackers, and then it says outside linebackers as well. So, at the end of the day, it's a title. I mean, if they win, I don't care.
He'll work with Matt House.
I don't even care if they lose. It's just a title.
He'll work with Matt House in that position group. Then you have Sam Madison and
Dave
Merritt taking over for Al Harris and Emmett Thomas, who retired. And the secondaries coach, Brendan Daly, coming over from the New England Patriots as the defensive line coach, all playing, and then who was it? Terry Braden was at it, or Braden?
He was there last.
Okay, so Braden but Braden and Whittingham, who were already on the staff, have been retained as defensive assistants.
Yeah, there were two retained
in terms of quality control or and now analyst posts. But not anything earth shattering, I don't think. Most of those names were already known. Were already out there. But let's hear real quick from Steve Spagnuolo on what he thought about the staff hires.
The guys that are here working together have spoken very similar language. We're trying to put something together that will work. But having guys that know each other a little bit, I thought was really, really important.
And obviously Spagnuolo is a guy who Reed is familiar with. So you get that feeling that, guys don't venture far from their comfort zone in hiring assistants to be underneath them. That's true for Andy in terms of his coordinator positions. That's true for a guy like Spagnuolo. And for the position coaches that he's going to hire underneath him, so no big surprise there. Who do you?
I'm just glad Spagnuolo likes his staff since he's the one who hired.
Yeah, no, you better not be like, we could have done better. I mean, I really wish that we had landed a couple other guys, because mostly what I see is a mediocre staff.
So I'm glad that he's happy with the staff that he hired.
Are you happy with the staff? In terms of your co-host on the podcast?
Who's that?
Oh, wow. That pregnant pause spoke volumes. Well, I'm sorry, Nick. But you're stuck with me. So here we go. One of the things that has come up a little bit,
I never signed the contract.
One of the things that I think has come up a little bit is, Spagnuolo was out of the league, and, he was not reunited last time. He was on the market after, his time with the Giants ended. He ended up with the Saints. Did not rejoin Andy in Philadelphia, but I don't get the feeling that there's anything to that. I get the feeling that it's just that's just kind of the way that it worked out. That these guys, I don't think it was ever. I just don't sense that they're making up a story about how they're happy to be reunited. I just think that a different opportunity came along for a team that maybe he thought was a little bit closer, or maybe he got a little bit of more money, whatever it was in New Orleans, and so he went that direction back then. But here we are, new day, and I think that relationship's solid.
I mean, if I remember correctly, they already had, I want to say they had a defensive coordinator already in place at that point, because I believe Juan Castillo was the defensive coordinator the year before. I know he's previously an O-line coach, but Andy's not the type of guy that's just going to, Andy has loyalty to guys, so I think he wasn't going to do that to Juan, and I believe Todd Bowles might have been underneath him at that time, if I remember correctly.
Well, and we saw the loyalty that Andy has when he maybe kept Bob Sutton 1 year too long, as it turns out, because Patrick Mahomes ascended so quickly. You probably could have, used a guy like a Spagnuolo this year, but Spagnuolo was out of the NFL last year. Let's hear what he did with his time away from the NFL.
Oodles of notes. I did have the opportunity, because I was living in the Philadelphia area, to go over to NFL Films every week and have access to film. So the young guys here in Kansas City already know that I had a lot of plays that I wanted to pull, because I gave it to them as soon as I got here. So again, I'd go back and say it was challenging yet very, very rewarding.
One thing that stuck out to me, I don't know if it stuck out to you as well, but he didn't exactly come out and say, we are absolutely going to a 4-3. I think it's widely speculated that's what's going to happen, but I think part of that's gamesmanship, like why give any more information than you have to before the first game of the season, because you don't need to give the other team anything. But people are going to see it, and something like that, something as basic as that, people are going to see that during the preseason games. So I don't know whether they're truly still evaluating that, or because you still expect them to absolutely go to a 4-3, right?
Yeah, they're going to a 4-3. So, I mean, they can – things. Whatever people want to do here in the off season, that's fine. It doesn't matter to me. When they talk to the players that they're going to bring in for potential draft prospects, and then whenever they bring in some potential free agents and sell them on this team, they're going to give them a really good idea about what they're going to do. So, I think
we'll be able to tell from who they sign, who they target, which direction they're going to a degree, right?
Yeah, and exactly whenever Brett Veach said in his press conference or his phone conference when he talked about how Breland Speaks fit better in a 4-3 and some players fit better in a 4-3, that wasn't by accident.
Yeah.
But, that's it's probably going to be their base, and then they'll do some stuff and go from there. But yeah, I fully expect it to be a 4-3.
All right, let's hear. Spags also talked about his defensive priorities with the scheme, so let's hear what he had to say.
In today's football, they put a lot of wideouts out there on offense, so we're in a lot of sub defenses, and a lot of sub defenses are not classified as 4-3 or 3-4. You just get your best pass rushes out there, and you get your best coverage people. So once we get that figured out, we'll start slotting people in the way they should go.
And I guess that's ultimately the point. I think I want better personnel that is coached better to defend the things that the other team is doing. I want a staff that can make adjustments, preferably as the game goes along, but certainly be able to make some adjustments at halftime or something, to be able to take away what the other team is doing and give that offense some more breathing room. Because that offense, look, they're the only team in NFL history to score at least 26 points in every game. You don't have to be a world-beating defense for this to be a championship caliber team, and hopefully the staff can get that part of it right.
Well, I think what's interesting what he said in that soundbite was how he mentioned the pass rushers and coverage. So those, in my opinion, so he's basically saying those have got to be right. And pass rush-wise, 50-50 in terms of what they're going to do scheme-wise, it's going to need some work. So basically what I took it as, what they're going to be working on in this free agency and draft, they're going to be working on the pass rushers and the coverage. So I would say that's where you mark a lot of your circles in terms of where the Chiefs are going to head.
Well, and we're going to talk a little bit more in the B block about what we think are some of the team needs. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. But one of the big question marks I think that's going to dog this team until a decision is made, is what's going to happen with Justin Houston. What are you going to do with Eric Berry, who's basically missed the last 2 seasons, and certainly hasn't played up to this contract. And not through any fault of his own. I mean, he had the Achilles injury, and then he had the, a sore Achilles again. It is what it is. Guys get hurt in this game. It's a game. I've heard it said where it's a game where over the course of a season, there's a 100% chance that you're going to get hurt playing in the NFL. This is not a knock on Eric Berry, but the cold analysis, the cold reality of a league with a salary cap and those kind of things is decisions going to have to be made. Let's hear what Spagnuolo had to say about Eric Berry and his situation.
Yeah, I know look at Rick Burkholder will handle that with Andy. I'm not up to snuff on the injury situation, but I've always had a great deal of respect for Eric ever since he was drafted. I have not had a chance to speak with him. But look, he's a talented football player, and we all know you got to be healthy, so I'm sure he's working on that right now.
Maybe. I mean, we haven't heard that he had surgery, so he may not be working as hard as the Chiefs would like on that.
All I can say is it wasn't exactly a ringing endorsement because,
No.
Here's my thing. If that guy's your defensive leader of the team and the guy that you really want to buy into your system and help connect other players that are going to be on this moving forward, I think you would have spoken about that a little bit differently. Be like, yeah, we talked to him already. We went over what we're going to do. He's really excited about it, and we're all looking forward to working together. Like, you would have said something along those lines. So to me, that puts a lot of things in doubt. And am I reading into that? Of course I am. But I've covered this team in various ways for 10 plus years, and I've been able to sift through what they're actually saying by their tone, their demeanor, and what they're really getting at with what they're saying non-verbally without them even realizing it.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I would be surprised if Houston and Berry are with the team next year.
Yeah, I'm personally not expecting either one to be back.
The one guy that I think we do both expect to be back. At least we think they're going to franchise him. And
I think they'll hold his rights a little bit longer.
Correct. So and look, they have to make that decision by March 5th if they're going to use a tag this year, whether it's the franchise tag or the transition tag. So I would expect, that's about 10 days away at the time we're recording this podcast. So March 5th is the deadline for Dee Ford, who is a free agent. And the Chiefs have a decision to make. I think we all kind of expect that they're going to franchise tag him, maybe try to shop him during the offseason, or he could play for 1 year at about $15.5 million under there. So Spagnuolo also addressed the Dee Ford situation. Let's hear from him.
Yeah, I'll be perfectly honest. Really haven't figured that out yet. I think myself, linebacker coaches, D-line coaches would still like to figure that out. I don't think that we're ready to put a tag on it one way or the other.
Not ready to put a tag on it. Well, hey, okay, everybody's gathering.
Talking about the franchise.
I know. But everybody's gathering in Indianapolis here, starting on February 26th, Tuesday. They'll start to gather for the NFL Combine. This is when a lot of things happen. Nick, what do you expect to happen when the greatest minds in the NFL get together in Indianapolis?
Well, here's what's interesting about the Ford part. Whenever they still don't have a defined role for him, and Steve Spagnuolo and them have been here for a handful of weeks now. You got you've been in the league long enough. You got a pretty good idea what you envision for him if he is a part of the scheme. So to kind of not say one way or another kind of tells me that you may be going in a different direction with that. So you really don't need to commit to anything on that aspect of it. What I think is going to happen at the NFL Combine this upcoming week is this is kind of the chance where all GMs are in one place. A lot of players' agents are in one place, so all of them can chat together and they can try to figure some things out, what they want contract-wise, and they probably already have a good idea because they've already probably spoken in the off-season, but you know what the ballpark is, and then you work with some other teams and see interested in this team interested in that, and then you start seeing who's market trade blocks happen, who's on the trade block, because I remember when I was in Indianapolis back in 2013, I was there whenever Alex Smith got traded unofficially to the Chiefs, and that broke as soon as the Combine ended. So that entire weekend, you had the Chiefs were there at the time. Trent Baalke, the 49ers GM, was there, and I remember people asking Harbaugh about Alex Smith and his availability, and I remember him saying that he was hesitating, he wasn't dancing one way or the other on it, committing to it, and then that trade got worked out, and then they moved on from there. So I think this is kind of where if people are shopping for trades, this is ideally the week that you do it in person, and you also feel out the market with your own players about what their agents are wanting.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the time when you're going to gauge what kind of trade market might exist for D Ford, and I suspect that, I think it was around this time or shortly after this time that, Alex Smith was traded to Washington. Or I guess that was a little bit earlier than the combine last year, but
Marcus Peters were earlier than normal last year.
Yeah, but you commonly see some trades start to come together this time of year. So we'll see if that happens again. We're going to take a quick break, then we'll be back to talk more about team needs here on 4th and 1. Welcome back to 4th and 1. Todd Palmer, joined by Nick Jacobs. Nick, I'm not sure if I introduced you properly off the top this episode. Hopefully people, know who we are at this point. Todd Palmer, 41 Action News, digital assignment editor, and Nick Jacobs, Sky Center extraordinaire, content coordinator. Which do you prefer?
I prefer my name.
All right, so Nicholas Jacobs it is.
Yeah, no, you had it right the first time.
So Sky Center extraordinaire? I'm very confused now.
All right, moving on. What's your team needs?
Well, no, I was going to ask you first, man. Okay. I'll tell you my first three. I mean, I think the top three positions of need. You want to do 3 or 5? Do
them all, man. Do what you feel the team needs are.
Well, let's just do 5 because I don't want to go. I mean, obviously, we don't need to go all the way down to quarterback. I think they're set there. It's my opinion.
Okay.
I don't know.
What's your team needs, Todd?
I don't know how you feel, but I feel like they're set there. Well, look, here's part of it. If they get rid of D Ford and if they get rid of Justin Houston, it also changes the equation a little bit because obviously then edge rusher becomes a much bigger need, I think. But looking as of right now, if we assume that D Ford is going to be back, I think cornerback is probably still the number one team need. I think it was the most glaring team need last year, and it's something the Chiefs need. But I'd also argue when you look at the situation, if Eric Berry's gone at safety, if you end up cutting Daniel Sorensen, which is a real possibility, if you don't re-sign Eric Murray, and then if somehow you decide to move on from Jordan Lucas, although I think that they'll try to re-sign him, but he's a free agent as well. That really leaves you with Armani Watts and not much else back there because Ron Parker, also free agent. So safety is also a pretty glaring team need. I think some combination of those first three, cornerback, edge rusher, and safety are clearly the 3 biggest team needs for the Kansas City Chiefs. I would put wide receiver 4th, though. I know that may sound a little bit counterintuitive, but I would actually put that ahead of middle linebacker. I think, especially in a 4-3, you can find guys to fill a role at that position. But I think that when Sammy Watkins was hurt last year, and with Chris Conley being a free agent, I think we saw last year the lack of depth that the team has. We know that this offseason, I don't expect them to make another splashy free agent signing at that position, which means that the help's going to have to come probably from the draft, unless there's some minor moves that they can make, like signing a guy like a Sammy Coates or something like that. But I would say that's number 4. And then I always think offensive line is a need for every team. So I would put that as my number 5 need.
All right. So those are team needs, right?
Sure, yeah.
All right. For me, it's going to be number 1 edge rusher, depending on where they go with Houston and Ford. Regardless, even if both of them stay on the roster or not, I still think you're going to need that. That's your number 1 pressing issue because I do think one of them will be gone, if not both. So that becomes number 1 need. Number 2, versatile corners. They're going to need at least 1 to probably 2 corners that can play both zone and press if they need to. And with the scheme, it's going to be a little bit more friendly to where you don't have to focus on playing press coverage all the time like you did under Sutton. Number 3, run supporting safety, replace Eric Berry. You're going to need that. Right now, a safety that has the versatility to be able to play down in the box, or if they need to play single high. Your 4th need is going to depend on what they want to do with Anthony Hitchens, and how they do in free agency will kind of help determine that aspect of it. If they need a Mike for middle linebacker, or if they need a Sam linebacker. So ideally, the 2 free agents that will be out there that you'll probably be seeing At some point, maybe linked to the Chiefs would be C.J. Mosley from the Ravens or Anthony Barr from the Vikings. Then number 5 would be a power running back that can actually break tackles. That's something the Chiefs missed. That's the Kareem Hunt factor that they don't have anymore, and that is something that they need. Number 6, slot.
Oh Lord, we're just going to keep going.
Speed receivers. They desperately need a slot receiver that can beat coverage and is reliable. If they're possession, that's fine, whatever. But you also need a speed receiver that can be insurance for Tyreek Hill or for Sammy Watkins if they potentially get hurt. That is going to be financially Eric Fisher. You're going to have to work on that there a little bit because you may have to go in a different direction in the next year or two. And then Mitchell Schwartz's contract is beginning to near its end. So you are going to need to start working on that now to look ahead for 2020 or 2021. Rotational defensive tackle depth, and then linebacker depth. So those are going to be the things that you need for this football team. It's a long list, but when you make a defensive change on the scheme and how bad the defense was, you're going to need all that to succeed.
Yeah, I feel like you didn't properly prepare me for what you wanted to do with this segment. I thought we were just going to have a casual conversation as we headed into the draft about it.
Go hard or go home.
No, but I mean, look, I think it's pretty clear that the top three positions. I mean, do you feel like, because I feel like those 3 are far and away the biggest needs, is the secondary pretty much everywhere and edge rusher.
Yeah, those are the things that, given the scheme, you desperately are going to need to work on, and you would have needed to work on them in a different way had you stayed in the same capacity you did before. But luckily, they didn't do that. So yeah, those are kind of your far and away the ones that you need to work on.
And then I mean, especially on offense, I feel like on offense, you've got the big piece that you need in
yes.
in Patrick Mahomes, and then. I mean, everything else you do needs to be designed to maximize his talent, to protect his talent, to give him, to nurture him. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is your pretty rose bush. Everything else, is fertilizer and water to make Patrick Mahomes grow.
Okay, well, that was a unique analogy on that one that I would personally never use. You did.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, fine. So, breaking, Nick Jacobs does not think that Patrick Mahomes smells like roses.
It's amazing, like the road you go.
I don't understand why
how you connect dots.
Gosh, you just stop putting words in my mouth. I mean,
it's kind of like A Beautiful Mind and Russell Crowe, but it's different.
But like in a frightening way.
It's like a more how do you say it? You had a smaller budget for the movie.
Yeah, and I spend a lot of time with my 4-year-old. So,
I see now that I have to stop it right there because now you brought in kids to it, and then I'm not gonna go any more offensive there.
Well, in fairness, I was not the only one who agreed to the whole kid thing. So,
okay, so sounds great.
All right. The Chiefs have 4 picks in the top 100 this year.
Yep.
But they do not have a 4th-round pick because that one was traded to the Buffalo Bills in the Reggie Ragland deal. I mean, it's safe to say those 4 picks. Last year, almost every pick, Veach packaged some picks together because they had 10, and he would package them together and move up. But with as many needs as they have and as tight as they are against the salary cap, would you expect Veach to be more inclined to use those 4 picks where they are this year?
Yeah, I think the 2 second-round picks give you a little bit of flexibility if you want to take one of them.
But you have to absolutely love somebody. I mean, there has to be somebody that you feel like is an absolute difference maker that maybe slides into the late. That slides out of the 1st round into the early 2nd round to give up those 2 picks to make that move, right?
No, you're not giving up both the 2nd-round picks. You're giving up. If I'm in Veach's shoes, the ammo you have right now is you have a 1st, and you take one of those 2nds, and if you need to package it to move somewhere in the 15 to early 20 range, then that gives you the leverage to do that. So you at least have that opportunity if there's an edge rusher that drops that you want, or if there's a corner or receiver or something along those lines, an impact player that has the ability that you need to succeed in that scheme, then that gives you the the opportunity to maneuver some if you have to. And then depending what happens with some of the players on the roster, if they're able to trade them for something that could be in the second, third, or fourth round as well, then that gives you even more flexibility to do what you need.
And to me, I think that's going to be the key is if, look, you're not going to be able to trade a guy like a Justin Houston or an Eric Berry, I don't think, because their contracts make that impossible.
Yeah, teams are like, I'm
but
good on that.
But a D Ford, maybe you can swing a deal where you get a second or third round pick out of him. And if it's this year, then you give yourself more options. I also think, it's very possible. I think at number 29, which is where the Chiefs pick in the first round, you can get a very good corner, a very good edge rusher, or a very good safety. One of those players, I think, will end up coming to you at 29.
Maybe. We'll just have to see how the board plays out on draft night, but at least those 2 second-round picks, one of them gives you a chance to maneuver how you need to.
I think the idea in the NFL these days is to build with youth, to make some savvy draft picks, to build cheap, and then you can pay your big money players, whether it's your quarterback or it's a Khalil Mack or an Aaron Donald or whoever it is. But you've got to supplement with the young guys as you go along. And so I fully expect that, the Chiefs are going to have to hit on and do a better job of finding starting talent out of those picks in the top 100 if they want to achieve the ultimate goal, which is to win the Super Bowl next year. I mean, do you this team as constructed, is it capable of winning a Super Bowl right now, or do you think that they need some quality starters out of those first 4 picks that are going to make a difference to get them over the hump?
I don't know if it's necessarily going to be out of the picks per se, but they're going to need to add some quality impact players on defense and another player or two on offense to be able to reach the ultimate goal. The Patriots showed them every single one of their flaws in that AFC Championship game. So now this whole staff understands what they're going to have to fix to be able to climb that mountaintop against them or the Colts or another team, depending on how free agency shapes out here in the next handful of weeks.
So you don't think E.J. Manuel got him over the top?
No, signing him, they're still letting time in Henny, and I wouldn't give either one of those up for E.J. Manuel, but I would at least allow him to compete and be that fourth arm in training camp.
No, I mean, it never hurts to have one more guy to spread the reps around to over the course of a season. And he's a veteran guy.
And you're also given the chance that if another one of those guys gets hurt in OTAs or training camp or mini camp, whatever, you have another guy that's had the full time to learn the system so that he can fill into that role.
I think if there are some injuries in other camps and they start looking for a veteran, you've now got an E.J. Manuel and a Chad Henne, and maybe that provides you some capital in July, August if needed to move a piece and secure, like you said, 4th, 5th round pick down the road that maybe that ends up getting packaged with something and you can move up. So smart signing, but yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously he's not going to supplant Patrick Mahomes. You don't think he's going to challenge Patrick Mahomes in training camp, do you?
Yeah, I'm real worried about that, though.
Come on, man. Just trying to have a little fun. All right, hey, we're going to take a quick break, and then we will come back, and we will hear from you guys. We're going to take your tweets here on 4th and 1. Welcome back to 4th and 1. Todd Palmer, Nick Jacobs. Nick Jacobs asked you guys, then I guess asked again. But you ready to kind of look at some of these tweets here? What do you got?
It's called Check the Tweets.
What do you got?
Check the Tweets.
My bad.
We're going to check the tweets.
Check the tweet. Do we have an intro? Do I need to drop an intro?
I just did it right there.
Okay.
We just did it. We're moving on. James Tucker, do you think the offense looks as good in 19 as they did in the last season?
I'll start. I wouldn't be surprised. Look, I don't expect Patrick Mahomes to throw for 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards every year. But I also don't think that if there's some statistical regression there, that it means that the offense isn't as good. I think that now that you know what you have in Patrick Mahomes, if your defense is a little more competent, and if you can go find a power run game, say, maybe you don't have to go full throttle all the time, knowing that you kind of have to maximize every possession with your offense because your defense is so bad, maybe it gives you some options to play a little bit more complementary. So, and you got to remember, Kareem Hunt was there for the first 12 games of the season. You're not going to have, potentially you're not going to have, a guy, certainly not one as established as Kareem Hunt in that backfield. So I think it would be a stretch to say that the offense is going to be even better, but I think it'll be every bit as good.
Yeah, for me personally, I think you're going to see some regression, not because they aren't as good or maybe even better. It's just the NFL is going to have a league. They're going to have the whole league's going to have a year to look at that offense and to see what they did or didn't do well. A lot of people are going to try to recreate and mimic what the Patriots and Baltimore Ravens did. And so the Chiefs are going to have answers in that in pass protection and for their receivers with some of the zone coverages and then also with the press coverage. So Mahomes he's gonna see a lot of looks this year, and that's why the Chiefs have to continue to add to that offense to continue evolving so they already have answers before they become problems.
The other thing, though, is Andy Reid is going to have a whole offseason to try to figure out new and fun things to do with Patrick Mahomes to counteract what you're going to expect to see from those defenses moving forward.
Yeah, but you're going to need the protection to be able to let you do those things.
He'll be protected, man.
Didn't look like in that Patriots game. All right, next check the tweets from Brad Filbert. Any chance we keep Morse or do we move on with so many other needs? Love the podcast.
All right, I need to get this out there right now. I covered Mitch Morse at the University of Missouri.
That's why I picked the question, because I knew you love you some Mitch Morse.
I do. I love Mitch Morse.
Cool quit.
You know what? Here's the thing. Mitch, and if you go back, if you've ever read stories about his family, first of all, his parents, amazing people. He's got a brother with some special needs, and that really has impacted the kind of person Mitch is. He's got a big heart, very kind man, and especially when it comes to his brother. I love Mitch Morse. I also think that the Chiefs have other needs greater than center. So depending on what Mitch and his agent are looking for in terms of a contract, I think that absolutely plays a role in what happens, because the Chiefs have some other options, whether it's Austin Ryder or Jordan Devey, assuming he gets healthy, who can play center. They've got some options there. Now, look, the other thing is, though, Mitch can also play the guard positions. I mean, he was a versatile guy. So, depending on what they want to do, we'll see. But they already invested in Cameron Irving at the end of training camp last year. They've obviously got their tackle set. They've got a lot of money in Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. So unless the price is right, unfortunately, I think Morse is probably going to be with another team next year. And it pains me to say that because I love me some Mitch Morse.
I'm going to make it short and sweet for you. No, they already put the plans in place last year, and you can tell whenever, like you said, with the Cam Irving part, and then bringing back Austin Ryder like they did, and acquiring him from the waiver claim as well, and then also Jordan Devey did a really good job at center this year as well, so I would honestly bring him back. So I think between Devey, Ryder, and Irving, you're gonna figure it out from there. Now our next one is it's another member of the 41 Action News team. You know him very well. He's on the morning show. Taylor Hemness has a really good question for us. He's also on the 41 Files podcast that I know you listen to all the time.
I do, and I'm all ears, like quite literally. I mean, I was born with giant bat-like ears. So
all right, well, way to throw shade at yourself. Good job. Taylor's question is: if you were to present an Oscar to a member of the Chiefs, what would they be?
An Oscar?
Yeah, since it's a big thing right now.
Ooh, an Oscar to a member of the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? It would probably be Best Sound. To Patrick Mahomes, because he has not yet learned how to talk like a veteran quarterback when he addresses the media. Like, you will never catch Tom Brady like copping to putting ketchup in his mac and cheese and stuff like that, even though Tom Brady does all kinds of weird stuff. I mean, I'm sure of it, but he's not going to admit to that. And I love the fact that Patrick Mahomes has no filter. So Best Sound goes to Patrick Mahomes.
All right, what I'm going to do is it's going to be Best Assist. It's also going to be to Patrick Mahomes.
For picking up my recorder?
Yeah, for picking up your recorder during the press conference.
I thought about doing that, but
so
I was
it would be Best Supporting Reporter or
yeah,
something?
I was like, I don't know how to work that one in. Like, Yeah, but no, that'll work.
I took care of it for you. Don't you
right,
worry
appreciate
about that. Then our final question will be from Micah. What is the boldest, most unreasonable, unthinkable offseason move the Chiefs make or do not make?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people will be surprised to hear that I think they're going to cut ties with both Houston and Barry and move on from him. So now the question becomes, I think they'll make a run at Earl Thomas. Depending on what the medicals say, and depending on what the Giants do with Landon Collins, because if Landon Collins is available, given his relationship with Steve Spagnuolo,
and Dave Merritt.
Yeah, and Merritt. That may make more sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Giants franchise him, which is a possibility still, then that opens the door. If Landon Collins is not available, then I think making a play for Earl Thomas, again, depending on how you feel that leg is gonna hold up, I think that's a move that the Chiefs go after.
Well, for me, the boldest thing I'm going to throw out there is that I think if the Chiefs are looking for an impact corner, I think they're going to have to go trade for one. Unless somebody gets released unexpectedly that we're not seeing right now.
Jalen Ramsey.
That would be that looks like a guy that's very frustrated in the on the roster that he's involved in.
Do they want EJ Manuel?
I doubt it, but maybe it's all possible. Maybe I don't think that they've had Henny before.
I would make that trade. So,
but my boldest move here is that I think if the Chiefs want to go get a premier corner, and I think they got one of the second-round picks and potentially an edge rusher to if the Jaguars would be interested, I think that's kind of where you use your value of D Ford. Personally, for me, now let me say this in advance: this is not a report. This is not fact. I was asked for a prediction. I was asked for a prediction.
Which is your favorite thing in the world?
This is me analyzing the scenarios that would be out there. I don't know if Ramsey's on the market. I don't know if Patrick Peterson's on the market, and I don't know if there's another corner out there that's on the market. But I'll be keeping an eye on what Denver does with Chris Harris. I'm curious to see what happens in that area. Curious to see how things work out with Jalen Ramsey, and I'm also curious to see how things work out with Patrick Peterson. But I do believe if the Chiefs want one of the better corners in the league, I do think they are going to have to go trade for it.
Yep, that's entirely possible.
To make the impact that they need in the scheme.
And
they can go get a corner on the. They can find a corner, but if you want to get a true impact guy, I think that's the route they're going to have to go.
I also think that if that happens, there will be some hemorrhaging among Chiefs fans who are, especially if they end up. Can you imagine if they trade the pick they got from the Rams in the Marcus Peters deal to the Jaguars or the Cardinals to get like a Peterson or a Ramsey? That's gonna make for a fun week of Twitter.
I don't worry. I've already thought of that, and I've already figured out how to mute my notifications for that.
Yeah, no, that's going to be amazing. I absolutely hope that happens now. Just for the social media
Todd,
carnage.
what will we have on the podcast next week?
Well, we're going to talk about there's a little meat market going on in Indianapolis, and I think
I just prefer to call it the Combine myself.
I think it's going to merit some conversation. Personally.
I had a lot of fun times in Indy whenever I got to go there and cover it 3 consecutive years.
Were you hanging out with Robert Kraft?
No, the only owner that I ever saw there was Jerry Jones, and he brought his bus up there. So like the beat reporter sat on the bus with him, and they got to interview him and have one-on-ones with him. You always saw Elway in the lobby walking around.
Yeah.
I think he was looking for a franchise quarterback. No, I'm just kidding.
Hard to miss that man's teeth.
I think he was searching anywhere in Indianapolis for a franchise quarterback.
Still hasn't found one.
Yep, still working on it. But no, it's always Combine's always a fun time if you've ever. It's just there's the whole NFL world is there. So you have. For example, I can say it now since he's no longer with the organization. I met I was with my anchor at the time, Dave Stewart, phenomenal guy, and we went to a restaurant, a franchise restaurant. Walked in there, and there's Emmett Thomas with his family. You know, and they're just right there. You know, just leaving from dinner, and said hi to him and everything, and then we go inside there, and there's a couple draft prospects, still decked out in their workout gear from the day. So that's how I knew that they were, and they were offensive linemen. So it's you see, and I remember whenever we were leaving to go have dinner that night, and Bill Callahan, he was the offensive line coach for the Cowboys at the time, just walked in front of us, even though he didn't necessarily have the light. So, had I not been paying attention, and I was paying attention because we know I'm a paranoid driver like that.
It's true. I've been in the car with you.
Unfortunately, it could have been an incident that would have been on the news if they're in Indianapolis, and Adam Scheffner probably would have broke that if
breaking Bill Callahan's been run over by.
I wouldn't go that far, but but yeah, no.
Was he with the Raiders at the time?
I told you he was with the Cowboys.
Oh my bad. Okay, yeah, no, okay.
But I'm saying, like, you literally
because if he was with the Raiders,
you see, I understand what you're saying. You see position coaches just all over the city, because the cool thing about Indianapolis is that everything's almost within an 8-block radius. They got hotels, the restaurants, the stadium, the convention center, all that stuff's all and they built it up that way so they could get the Super Bowl back in the late 2000s and then 07 to 09 era. I can't remember when they had it there at Lucas Oil, but so I mean, it's just everything's so convenient, and you see the NFL world there. I get to see Chris Collinsworth and Jay Glazer whenever I went to St. Elmo's, and just see people everywhere. It's one of the cool weeks of the NFL.
All right. Well, I hope you were able to keep up with all that name dropping.
I'm just, what I'm saying. That like, it's
I know what you're saying. You're geeking out.
It's a cool week, man. And then because St. Elmo's is the spot that if you ever get to go, like that's one of the spots to go to. Because I remember when Kenitra Williams and I were up there.
Is it fire?
What?
Is it fire?
No, I mean technically they use fire to cook the steaks.
St. Elmo's fire.
But like Dave and I were there, and Brian Schottenheimer was at a table over, and Dave went over there to talk to him, and then the position coaches at the time made fun of Dave. Dave was talking about his high school days and everything, and the position coach was like, "How much did he pay you to talk about how great of a quarterback he was in high school?" And it's just I don't know. It's just one of those fun things, and but yeah, when Kenny Turner there, I saw Andy there that one time, and then Colquitt was coming out. So, I mean,
you got to have dinner with Colquitt?
No, I didn't. I just saw him walking out.
All right, well, I'm not as jealous as I would have been.
Yeah, but that was their playoff game for that one. But I'm saying St. Elmo's, you ever get to go to Indianapolis, fun place to go.
By the way, that right there is a podcast record for most excited Nick Jacobs has been to talk about something. Also, I believe that marks the first time that he has been the one to mention Dustin Colquitt and not me.
No, I've mentioned him some other times. Don't worry about it.
All right, guys. Well, hey, we're gonna vex. Well, let's leave on this, okay? The Chiefs have 8 picks in the draft. All right, no 4th-round pick, one compensatory pick. They do not have their natural 7th-round pick. That went through like 7 different people and ended up with the Patriots.
And then they don't have the 4th.
But correct. But they do have a 7th-round pick. It is from the 49ers. Do you know who they traded to receive that 7th-round pick?
And there's no other. It did not exchange hands anywhere else.
Nope. It was straight from the 49ers in I'll even get a 2016 trade.
Well, I know that would have been.
I had forgotten that this trade ever happened.
Well, the pick that they should have got from that one would have been Rod Streeter, because Dorsey did 7th-round picks 3 years in advance.
It was Rod Streeter.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it always irritated me, because at the end of training camp, he would trade somebody obscurely, like Marcus Cooper. You traded to the Cardinals for a 7th-round pick in
2028.
2020. I'm like, come on, man, need the picks back here, John.
That's all right. In 2042, we're going to clean up.
That was one of the 80s, unique quirks that John Dorsey.
Yeah,
had.
but here we go. 3 years later, that Rod Streeter pick is coming up to roost, baby.
He's been on 3 teams since then too.
All right, guys.
You thought you were going to stump me.
I did. I thought I had you. I did. I definitely thought I had you. So, all right, guys. Anyway, hey, we hope you stuck around, had as much fun as we did talking. And as you can tell, Nick maybe just a little bit excited to talk about the Combine next week. So we will be back with you on 4th and 1. We hope you guys stay safe and have fun this week. Say goodbye, Nick.
So, goodbye, Todd.